Chelsea got torn apart by Man City at Stamford Bridge, and we need to talk about it. Let me ask you something straight away. What does it feel like to watch your team get dominated on their own ground, in front of their own fans, by a team that barely broke a sweat? Because that is exactly what happened at Stamford Bridge on Sunday afternoon. Manchester City did not just beat Chelsea. They came to West London and made a statement, a cold, clinical, record-breaking statement that left every Chelsea fan sitting at home wondering where this club is really heading right now. 3 goals, 617 passes, a Premier League record broken, and Cole Palmer copping abuse from the away end while doing his absolute best to drag his team into the game on his own. It was one of those afternoons where you watch the full 90 minutes and come out the other side feeling completely drained. If you are part of the Lucy Chelsea analysis community, you know this feeling too well. So let us sit down, go through everything that happened, and try to make sense of it all. The scene before a ball was even kicked. Before the match even got going, there was already a huge story hanging over the whole thing. Enzo Fernandez was not on the pitch. He was sitting on the bench in sunglasses watching his teammates warm up, serving the second game of a 2-match internal ban handed to him by head coach Liam Rosenior. Now that is a bold call from Rosenior. Some Chelsea players had reportedly asked the manager to end the ban early so Fernandez could play against City. Think about that for a second. His own players were going to the manager to ask for a key player back. That tells you how important they know Fernandez is, especially against a side like Man City. But Rosenior said no. He stood firm. He wanted to send a message to the dressing room that no player is bigger than the rules he sets. You can respect that kind of authority. You really can. But when the result comes in at 3-0, you have to sit with the consequences too. And the consequences were brutal. First half, Chelsea were actually in this game. Here is something that many people might overlook when they see the 3-0 scoreline. Chelsea were actually decent in the first half. They pushed Man City around a bit, they were competitive, and they even thought they had scored. Marc Cucurella had the ball in the back of the net, but the flag went up. A fraction offside. Correct decision according to reports, but still a tough one to take in the moment. That goal could have changed everything. A Chelsea lead at Stamford Bridge against Man City would have shifted the entire energy of the match, and who knows how it plays out from there. But here is a stat that tells you something even in that first half. Manchester City completed 345 passes in the first 45 minutes alone. Chelsea managed 154 in the same period. That is more than double. City had more passes in the first half than Chelsea managed in the entire 90 minutes. Chelsea finished the game on 321 total passes, while City ended up on 617. That is a record. The highest number of completed passes any Premier League team has ever made against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge since records began more than 20 years ago. Think about what that actually means. City were moving the ball at will. They were finding angles, switching the play, pulling Chelsea's shape apart with their passing. And Chelsea, even when they were defending reasonably well, were just chasing shadows for large portions of the game. The Cole Palmer situation. In the first half, now let us talk about the man who was trying everything to give Chelsea a foothold in this game. Cole Palmer was playing as a number 10, a role he has now started in for 2 matches following the international break. During the break, England manager Thomas Tuchel, who of course used to manage Chelsea, said publicly that Palmer's best position is as a 10. Rosenior appears to have listened, and honestly, it is hard to argue with that when you watch Palmer operate in that role. He looks more involved, more central to everything Chelsea are trying to do. In the first few minutes of the game, Palmer did something special. He turned Rodri, the Ballon d'Or winner, inside out. Let that sink in. Rodri is one of the best midfielders on the planet. He controls games, he reads danger, and Palmer twisted him around and left him with no option but to reach out and pull him back. Here is the issue. The referee, Chris Kavanagh, did not give a yellow card, and Palmer was not happy about it. He was seen on camera absolutely furious, venting at the referee right there on the pitch. Gary Neville on Sky Sports co-commentary said exactly what most people watching were thinking. He said Palmer had every right to be furious and that it was a straightforward yellow card. Former Chelsea goalkeeper Rob Green said the same thing on BBC Sport. He said it was a perfect example of when a yellow should be given and that he simply did not understand how the referee missed it. Why does this matter so much? Because Rodri with an early yellow card is a completely different player for the rest of the match. He would have had to pull back from challenges. He would have been more cautious. He could not have been as physical or as aggressive in trying to stop Palmer. That one refereeing decision in the early minutes could have genuinely changed the shape of the entire game, and Chelsea were robbed of it. If you were watching and sharing your thoughts in the Lucy Chelsea analysis community, what did you make of that call? Did Kavanagh get it badly wrong, or was it one of those decisions that referees just get away with on the day? The second half collapse. Chelsea managed to keep it goalless at halftime, but the second half was a completely different story. It fell apart fast. Nico O'Reilly headed home in the first 5 minutes after the restart. Just 5 minutes into the second half and City had the lead. Then Mark Guehi, who is actually on loan from Crystal Palace and looked excellent throughout, added a second very quickly. And then Jeremy Doku made it 3 to put the game completely to bed. 2 goals in 6 minutes. Just like that. 3-0. Game over. What happened in those few minutes after halftime? Chelsea went into the dressing room level and came out the other side completely overrun. The energy shifted. City clicked into another gear. And without Fernandez in the middle to help control the tempo and win the ball back, Chelsea's midfield was exposed badly. Moises Caicedo had a really tough afternoon. He was one of the players who struggled most, and he was directly involved in the third goal, losing possession to Doku, who then scored. For someone who cost Chelsea a huge fee and who is supposed to be one of the best holding midfielders in the league, that is hard to watch. And Andre Santos was also poor, being out-muscled for the opening goal. When your 2 central midfielders are having those kinds of games and your key midfielder is sitting in the stands in sunglasses, you are going to get taken apart by a team of Man City's quality. And that is exactly what happened. Rosenior's gamble and what it cost. Let us be fair to Liam Rosenior here. The man is trying to build something. He took over in difficult circumstances, and he has actually done reasonably well considering everything. According to one comment that has been widely shared, he has 10 wins from 19 matches since taking over, which is a solid record given where the team was before he arrived. But the Fernandez decision is going to be questioned heavily now. Reports say some Chelsea players went to Rosenior and asked him to lift the ban for this match. He refused. He wanted to show the squad that discipline matters and that no player is untouchable. That is the right message in principle. In fact, you could argue every good manager should have that kind of authority. But timing is everything in football. Choosing to make that stand against Manchester City in a game Chelsea desperately needed points from to keep their top 4 hopes alive felt like a risky moment to draw that line. Could Rosenior have suspended the suspension for just this one game and then reapplied it afterward? Maybe. Would that have sent a mixed message to the squad? Possibly. But would Chelsea have stood a better chance of getting something from the game with Fernandez in the middle? Almost certainly. What do you think? Should Rosenior have stuck to his guns the way he did, or would you have made an exception for a game this big? David Ornstein's bombshell about Rosenior's future. While all of this was playing out on the pitch, respected journalist David Ornstein dropped a significant update. He reported that Rosenior will remain Chelsea's head coach next season regardless of whether they qualify for the Champions League or not. That is a major piece of news. It means the board has made their decision. They are backing Rosenior for the long term. They want him to have a proper preseason, time to build his squad, and a genuine chance to put his stamp on the club with quality preparation time, rather than jumping into a role mid-season and fixing problems on the go. Some Chelsea fans will welcome that stability. Others will look at a 3-0 home defeat to Man City and question whether Rosenior is truly the man to compete at the top level. The truth is probably somewhere in between. He has shown enough quality in the role to earn more time, but he will also need proper investment in players who fit his system next summer to really show what he can do. Cole Palmer against Man City. The record that hurts. Let us look properly at how Cole Palmer has done against his former club since leaving Manchester City in the summer of 2023 to join Chelsea for £40 million. 7 games played against Man City, 0 wins, 4 defeats and 3 draws. That is a rough record for someone of Palmer's quality. In terms of goals, he has scored just 1 in those 7 games, and that came in the famous 4-4 draw in his first season as a Chelsea player. That game was extraordinary, and that goal was a reminder of how gifted Palmer is. But 1 goal in 7 games against City is still a disappointing return. Assists against City, 0. Not a single one across 7 matches. Now, before we pile on Palmer for those numbers, let us be clear about something. This is not really a reflection on Palmer's ability. It is a reflection on how dominant City have been and how difficult they are to play against as a team. When your team barely has the ball, your creative players rarely get chances to shine in the final numbers, even if they are working hard all game. And on Sunday, Palmer absolutely was working hard. He was getting on the ball, trying things, and making life difficult for City's defenders and midfield. The City fans in the away end at Stamford Bridge were chanting about Palmer being a City reject. BBC Sport reporter Nizar Kinsella reported on social media that Palmer was copying those chants while actually looking sharp on the pitch. That says something. City fans clearly remember him. They clearly know what he is capable of, and they wanted to get in his head. Did it work? Not really. Palmer kept going. He kept trying. He was probably Chelsea's best player on the day, which tells you everything about how tough the afternoon was for his teammates. What Chelsea actually need right now. So where does this leave Chelsea? They are still in the fight for Champions League football, but the gap has not closed the way they needed it to. Liverpool won on Saturday, and Chelsea could not close the gap on Sunday. 6 games remain in the season, and Chelsea need to pick up points quickly. The next game is against Manchester United. Fernandez will be back from his ban. That is a massive boost. Palmer should keep his place as a 10, and Rosenior will need a big response from his squad after an embarrassing afternoon at home. But the bigger picture question is this. Is this Chelsea squad built to compete at the very top level? On days like Sunday, it is hard to say yes. They were outpassed, outrun, outmuscled and outclassed in the second half by a City side that was not even at their absolute best. Chelsea have spent enormous amounts of money in the transfer market over the past 3 or 4 years. Billions and billions have been invested in players. And yet on a Sunday afternoon at home, they were handed a record-breaking defeat by their visitors. Something in the squad building has gone wrong, and it needs to be fixed. The bigger picture for the top 4 race. Let us zoom out just a bit and look at where this result puts Chelsea in the context of the season. With 6 games to go, Chelsea need wins. Not just results, actual wins. Because the teams around them are picking up points too. And every dropped point makes the Champions League harder to reach. Liverpool are pulling away at the top. They are not in Chelsea's direct fight, but the teams just above Chelsea are not going to hand over anything. And after a performance like Sunday, you have to wonder whether the belief in the dressing room is strong enough to go on a run in the final 6 games. Palmer looks motivated. He said before this game that he has turned a corner after his injury frustrations and feels like himself again. That is encouraging. A fit and firing Cole Palmer playing as a 10 is one of the most dangerous attacking players in the Premier League when everything is clicking. But Palmer cannot do it alone. Caicedo needs to be better. The defensive line needs to be sharper. And the players who filled in for Fernandez need to show they can handle pressure games without falling apart. What the record passing stat actually tells us. Let us come back to that passing record one more time because it really is the story of the afternoon. City completing 345 passes in the first half alone, more than Chelsea managed in 90 minutes, is not just a number. It tells you about control. It tells you about territory. It tells you about how much Chelsea were chasing the ball without ever really catching it. When you are running after the ball that much in a football match, your legs get tired. Your concentration dips. You make mistakes. And that is precisely what happened in the second half when City scored twice in 6 minutes. Chelsea's legs were gone. Their heads were gone. And City, fresh and sharp and precise, simply took over. The record that this created at Stamford Bridge, the highest passing total any Premier League side has ever made against Chelsea at their own ground, is a painful one to hold. It is a reminder that on Sunday, City were just on a completely different level. The Enzo effect and what absence does to a team. Here is a thought worth sitting with. How much does Fernandez actually change Chelsea as a team when he plays? The answer is clearly a lot. Without him on Sunday, the midfield looked disorganized, slow to win the ball, and unable to break the lines with forward passes. With him, Chelsea have a player who can press with energy, win the ball, and also play quick passes in tight spaces to help the attack move forward. Whether you agree with his ban or not, the absence of one player should not make this kind of difference. And the fact that it did tells you something uncomfortable about the depth of Chelsea's squad. When your best midfielder is missing, you should still be able to compete. On Sunday, Chelsea could not. That is a squad problem as much as a manager problem. Looking ahead, Man United. Next, Fernandez will be back for the Manchester United game next week. That is the first thing to focus on after this result. United are having their own difficult season, and Chelsea will fancy their chances at home or away against them right now. But Chelsea need to be careful. The mood after a 3-0 home defeat can be tricky. Players can go into the next game either with a massive desire to make up for it or with their confidence dented and their heads down. Rosenior's job this week in training is to make sure it is the former. If Palmer plays as a 10 again and Fernandez comes back into the middle, Chelsea have the quality to go and beat United. But they need to be focused, disciplined and clinical. No more giving the ball away in dangerous areas. No more midfield players getting out-muscled. And no more refereeing controversies that take momentum away from the team. Final thoughts and a message. To every Chelsea fan reading this here is where we land after one of the more painful afternoons of this Chelsea season. Man City were brilliant. They broke a Premier League record against us on our own ground. 3 goals, 6-17 passes, a second-half masterclass. Credit where it is due, Guardiola's side showed exactly why they are still capable of competing for titles, even in a season where others have pushed them hard. Chelsea tried in the first half. They competed. They had chances. Cucurella thought he had scored. Palmer was their best player and he worked his socks off against his former club while fans tried to get in his head from the stands. But the second half collapse, the absence of Fernandez, the poor performances from Caicedo and Santos, and that record passing stat all tell a story about a Chelsea side that still has a big gap between where they are and where the very best teams in the league are. 6 games left. The Champions League is still possible. Palmer is in form, Fernandez is coming back, and Rosenior, according to David Ornstein, is staying regardless. So the question for every Chelsea fan in the Lucy Chelsea analysis community right now is simple. Do you believe this squad has enough to finish in the top four? Or does Sunday feel like a sign that the gap is just too big to close this season? Leave your thoughts, share your feelings, and as always, let us keep the conversation going because that is what this community is built for. We are Chelsea. We have seen worse. And we will keep watching, keep hoping, and keep analysing until the very last kick of the season. Come on, Chelsea!